How's it going, everyone? My name's Ayerow, and in today's video, I'll be teaching you everything you need to know to survive the early game in Valheim. So as soon as you get dropped off by the bird and land on the sacrificial stones, you are greeted by Huggins, basically your tour guide of the game. He doesn't really hold your hand though, so that's why I'm here to kind of show you what else you can do that Huggins really doesn't tell you. Alright, so we'll start off with number one, and that's your map. Your map is really important in this game, and it has a lot of useful features that the game does not tell you. For instance, you can click on this little button at the bottom right if you're playing with friends, so that way they can see you on the map. Also, on the right side, the game gives you markers which you can leave on the map. So that way if you have a base, you can mark it and never lose it. Or if you find some caves or a spawner, you can also leave markers for that too. Once you've placed an icon, you can also put an X over top of it to show that you've, say, completed the cave, and you don't have to go back to it. Alright, now on to your second tip. So we're going to start off with gathering some resources. Starting with some wood, you can either find some branches just lying on the ground, or if you're up to it and you think your fists can handle it, you can go ahead and punch these tiny trees as well. Alright, and then the next resource you're going to want to try to find are stones. So at the point in this game when you're first starting out, you definitely can't take out the bigger rocks, so you have to resort to picking up these smaller rocks, just until you get your pickaxe at least. Alright, and the last resource for the early game you're going to want to try to find is flint. And if you're like me, I had a lot of trouble trying to find flint at the early game. I had no idea where to find it. So I'm about to tell you. To find flint, you must be near a river or just any kind of body of water, and you just kind of walk around the edges and you should find plenty and plenty of flint. Alright, now for your menu. So to start, you have these 4 icons at the top right underneath your name, and they do special things. So to start, this one enables PvP and disables PvP. The trophy, anytime you kill a monster or collect a boss trophy, it'll actually show up in that trophy tab. Next, you have your skills. This is where you can see what level your skill is, what it does, and new ones you unlock. So as of right now, I actually don't have very many unlocked because I haven't done much. But if I was using a spear, you would see spear up there as well. And then next you have kind of like a little log system where it also shows you what active effects you have on at the time. So as you can see, I'm wet because I was just in the water collecting flint, and it shows you exactly what the wet effect does. This also works for rested effects and poison and all kinds of other effects that you have no clue what they do. So abandoned houses in Valheim can be extremely useful to you in the early game. Like this one I just found here. It actually has a chest inside, which many abandoned houses you will find in the open world will actually have. In this one, for instance, I found some feathers and a torch. I mean, it's not the best, but it's better than nothing. And then I decided to try to punch this chest to break it, and yeah, that doesn't go very well. Other abandoned houses you can also look for in the early game are these little, I don't even really know what to call them. They kind of just look like little shelters. But once you acquire the axe, you can actually go and break them and acquire core wood, which isn't really useful early game, but saves you some trouble in the later game if you do it early. Alright, now we're going to talk about the Black Forest, because I know many of you guys are probably going to wander in here and not really understand what's going on. So, as Huggins instructs, he tells us to turn back. This is a dangerous place. Well, I'm saying no. and I'm gonna go and venture and see what we can find in the Black Forest. So in the Black Forest, you'll actually come across quite a few enemies that are not really out of your level. Like, you could fight them, but they're more than likely just gonna whoop your ass. Like, for example, these gray dwarfs. I could fight them, but all I have is a torch. I came extremely unprepared for this, and as you can see, it doesn't end well. Alright, so this is a good opportunity to show you guys what actually happens when you die. So when you die, there'll be a skull and crossbones that appears on your map, and that is where you died. So you can head back to your body and grab your items and get the heck out of there. You also get a nice little speed boost for 50 seconds after picking up your item, so that way you can hightail it out of there. Alright, so hopefully by this time you've had the chance to collect some wood and some stone, and you've crafted yourself the hammer. This was what's going to allow you to actually be able to build in Valheim, and the building is insane. Alright, so now that you've gone ahead and crafted yourself a hammer, you should go ahead and craft a crafting station. It only requires 10 wood, and to do that you must equip your hammer. In the top left you can see I have it equipped, and then you click on the right mouse button. Once you click the right mouse button, the build menu will appear, and in building you can find your crafting station and place it. So now that you've placed your crafting station, it needs a roof. So you can actually make a pretty basic roof pretty quickly with just 4 walls and 2 roofs. And so the building actually is really nice in this game. So it automatically snaps to whatever you're trying to place it on, as long as you're not holding down left shift. If you hold down left shift, the wall will move freely without trying to snap to anything, which is amazing. Alright, so once you got the roof over your workstation, you can now finally build your house. Once you've built your house, you want to go ahead and put your workstation inside your house, and then you can start upgrading it with things like the chopping block and other sorts of things that will actually increase the level of your workbench, indicated by this star in the right hand corner. So now if I go ahead and I open my crafting menu by equipping my hammer and I go to crafting, you can actually see what workbench improvements you could make, and they indicate that with a star right over top the icon. And what's also really nice, it actually has a tether going from the chopping block to the workbench to show you that it's connected. Oh, and there's one thing I almost forgot to mention. Your tools and gear actually deteriorate when you use them or get hit by enemies. But luckily, repairing them is just as easy as clicking a button. Literally, it's free. You literally just click a button and all of your stuff will be repaired just like. Alright, so next up, I'm just going to kind of go over what kind of gear you should go for in the early game to be the most effective. So really, you don't have very many options too. You either have the flint spear, which is made with some wood, some flint, and some hide, and then you have the flint axe. Both are really good early game. The spear kind of gives you a little bit more distance, but they're both really nice. And then you also have the wooden shield that you can pair with your flint axe if you really wanted to. So that's an upside for that over the spear. And then next, maybe grab some pants since you do start naked. So maybe put some pants on, you dirty ape. Also, there's this really cool feature with the shields that you can't really do with any other items that, as far as I'm aware. There's a little style button right underneath the name, and you can actually change what it looks like. And this works for the tower shield as well, and I presume most shields throughout the rest of the game. Alright, so after making your flint spear and you've gathered some leather, it's time to make your crude bow. The crude bow is pretty useful in the early game, since pretty much any deer you find just runs away from you, is impossible to catch, and that arrows are pretty cheap to make with just a couple wood to make the wooden arrows. But you should invest in trying to make some flame arrows or even the other arrows. But once you've done that, you can go out and kill some deer and start making leather armor. And even a deer hide cape if you found some bones throughout the world, or some skeletons. Alright, so now that you've collected some raw meat and you're ready to cook it, but you're not sure how. So you need to start with a fire, and then you need to make a cooking rack. But you need to keep in mind that you must place the cooking rack over top of a fire, like so. If you don't, the game will just give you a message saying you need a lit fire underneath. So next you want to go ahead and throw your it's not cooked yet. You want to go ahead and throw your meat onto the fire, and you just kind of sit there and wait. There's an audio cue that happens, but it's more visual than audio in my opinion. But if you're in a chest and you're listening, you could probably hear it. So any second now, the meat's actually gonna almost ignite, and that means it's ready. And see right there, both meats finished just a little bit after. Like, it is timed, I think, because I mean, if you put them on like right away, they both pop at the same time. So it's a little bit of a waiting game, but it's so worth it because food in this game actually increases your HP. So you don't really get hungry, but as you can see in the bottom left, since I've eaten cooked food, my HP bar has actually gone up, and you can see my HP actually increasing. And see, both meats actually finish at the exact same time, which is weird. So I think they are on a timer if you could remember it. Also, if you can eat up to 3 different foods at a time, which will all increase your HP bar. As you can see in the bottom, I just ate a mushroom, which just stacked on top of the brown bar, which was caused by the cooked food. Alright, a couple more things before we wrap this video up. The next thing I'm going to show you guys is the hoe. So I didn't really even know about this because, I don't know, I just didn't make the hoe. But the hoe is used to level ground. So if you don't want like grass under your house, so that way it looks like you have carpet, you can actually use this to just level your ground and make your house look way better. Alright, so now we're going to talk about hunting and sneaking up on prey and killing them in one hit. Yeah, I know, right? Sounds crazy. So in this game, you can actually sneak, and I don't know if it actually gives you bonus damage, but it feels like it does. So deer, as you can see, typically run away from you if you scare them. But if you sneak up on a deer with a bow, you can actually get the drop on it. And with the, I actually got really lucky here. Watch this. This deer literally ran right towards me. Kind of made it hard for me to actually show you how the bow works. But with the bow, especially the crude bow, its aim is awful. So to correct for that, you kind of need to aim higher than where your target actually is. As you can see with this next shot, I actually aim quite a bit higher than where the deer actually is, just so I'm able to hit it. I do miss, but yeah, you can see right here, like I'm pretty far away from him as opposed to where his actual body is, and that's because the crude bow is just downright awful. But once you get used to it, it's not that bad. Alright, so last but certainly not least, I just wanted to show you guys these weird circle of stone structures that you can kind of see out throughout the map. So it'll actually be just a bunch of stones, as you can see on my screen, and I'm kind of mapping it out with the hoe. These weird little areas, and if you come back later on, once you have unlocked the pickaxe, you can actually mine this area, and you can find gems and chests, and I'm not really sure what else, but you can find some pretty neat stuff. So since I don't have the pickaxe yet, I'm actually going to go ahead and mark it on my map so I can come back later. Alright guys, well, that concludes this video. I hope you guys liked it, or at least learned something from it. I know most of the stuff you learn pretty well just from playing the game, but a lot of it is kind of just hidden and doesn't really tell you, so I hope you guys learned something, and if you did, maybe drop me a like and subscribe. And also, enjoy this wonderful view. This game is so beautiful.